Hey guys, hi, this is Pari Patri coming live from Maryland. I am so excited to do this video today because in this video today we are going to talk to Fernando Vosso. He is an amazing spiritual scientist. I'm going to talk all about it. But before I introduce him, those of you who don't know me, my name is Pari Patri. I am the founder of the Cosmic Reset Retreat that's happening this August. And I'm also a meditation teacher. I work as an executive spiritual coach, working with women to overcome limiting beliefs and manifest the life they want. So let me just talk about the retreat that we are doing in August. It's called Cosmic Reset Retreat, happening on August 2nd to 4th in Madison, Virginia. And this is where I'm going to meet Fernando personally, and he's going to talk all about the new technology, the sacred geometry technology. So if you guys haven't checked out, please go ahead and check out www.cosmicreset.com. Just one word, and check out the speakers. We are bringing in speakers from all over the country. It's about meditation. It's about consciousness, bringing science and mysticism together, bridging the gap between the science, the new technology, the quantum physics, and also the mystic information, the mystic knowledge, wisdom we have. So it's about bridging the East and the West. So it's going to be super amazing. We're going to have hey Lisa, hi. And we're gonna have we're gonna do some energy work as well. We're going to do meditation, energy work, and also learn about all these high vibrational tools that we can bring into our lives and really amplify our energy, amplify and really have the best life, have the best experience yet. And this is all about connecting. This is all about connecting, creating, and just coming together as one. So let me first introduce Fernando. Fernando is an independent biofuturist, Terra healer. Terra means earth, earth healer, and artivist. In 2013, he focused on developing a sustainable dome home called the Vossahedron, and we're going to learn all about it in the next today and in the next few sessions. The Vossahedron project is an integration of heart-based wisdom and quantum technologies to establish an architecture that regenerates our body at the cellular level, expands our mental capabilities, and connects us to higher spiritual awareness. Vosso's approach is through biomimicry. So we're going to learn all about it. So hold on your questions. We're going to talk every question you have. So make sure you hop on here and bring anyone who is interested in this. In the study of cactus in Baja California and the practice of sacred geometry found in ancient sites across the world. He is going to talk about how efficiently, we can mitigate heat, cold, sound, crystals, water, light, magnetism, and naturally connect with Earth. Imagine, I want you to guys imagine a home that generates its own electricity, harvests water, and grows organic food while being, hurricane and earthquake resistant. Oh my gosh, I'm just reading this and I'm like, whoa, I want that home. Just, imagine if you have that, how would that look like? And that is possible. What Fernando has, shown us that it is possible, and he built that. So we'll talk all about that. But first, let's go bring Fernando onto the screen. Hey, Fernando. Hi. Oh my gosh, you're on mute. You're on mute. I forgot to tell you. Yes, I can hear you. Okay.
I just said the meaning of life. Did you guys catch that?
No. We want to hear that again.
That was the answer to everything. 42. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am feeling the excitement of 2019 to be present in this year. We're going to talk a little bit about that energy too.
Yes, I think, yes, I'm I'm so feeling that high vibrations, that energy waves coming in onto the earth, and it's like really shifting the whole consciousness. And I would love to hear more about that. So where are you talking to me from today?
I'm in Silver City, New Mexico. I've
Mhm.
recently relocated. Silver City and the entire state of New Mexico is my chosen prototyping grounds for the Vossahedron project. I've
Mhm.
looked all over California, the United States, and 12 different countries and decided just pick a place and start this, right?
Amazing. I mean, amazing. I heard about the energy shift, and really how the consciousness is expanding in that area. So tell me.
This is the kind of like the epicenter of Navajo, Hopi, Apache, Zuni, Zii nations, their
Mhm.
belief systems, the cosmology of the Olmecs, the Toltecs. You know,
Mhm.
in Mexico,
Mexico.
Mexica is really the tradition there.
Mhm.
Where I am from, Guadalajara, Mexico. And I've connected my entire lineage of ancestral history to Aztlan, which is the birthplace of Mexico, which came from this part of the world. Before the pyramids were built in central Mexico, there was great migrations all the way from Atlantis and Lemuria.
Mhm.
So that knowledge of Pleiadian star knowledge is right here in New Mexico, Arizona. Uh, Chaco Canyon is really the hub of that.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. So tell me more about you. Where are you from? Where were you born? Tell me about your childhood.
I was born in Guadalajara, Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
and we relocated to the United States when I was about 7 years old to Alaska. So it was an extreme of realities to not speak any English, to arrive with such a difference in culture. And Alaska, as far as the United States, it's kind of its own country. The physical distance, the remote aspect of it, the proximity to Russia. So that for me was a stage to grow my mind in an environment of extreme nature, the mountains, the weather patterns of summer where there's a lot of sunlight, and even the aurora borealis, the northern lights. I
Mm-hmm.
always wondered as a child when I was looking up into those northern lights near the Arctic Circle of Alaska, what that influenced in my mind. Because Alaska is also a military stronghold. So there's secret space program artifacts there. It's very high UFO activity. That's where one of the HARP stations in the world is in Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
So how interesting is it to come from the edge of the Lemurian continent, which is centered in Hawaii? I
Mm-hmm.
have lived my entire life all the way around the perimeter, up and down the West Coast,
Mm-hmm.
all the way down to Peru,
Mm-hmm.
New Zealand, Australia, Japan, Hawaii, California, which is the last vestiges of Lemuria. So imagine growing up like this as a little kid, knowing that I was connected, but not quite figuring it out.
Right. So while you were growing up, so did you know about your connection to the spiritual realm? Were you aware of your abilities at that point?
Yes, from day one.
Wow.
I
Mm-hmm.
have a concept I call birth by lightning.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can experiment this idea with your own life and other of your friends.
Mm-hmm.
The more complicated your birth was, meaning there was physical issues, mom had troubles, even in the womb, most star seeds, you might say, awakened beings who are in this frequency had a very complicated birth, even a complicated pre-birth in the womb. So I consider this like my Spartan training. You know, when we are being prepared to enter Earth, mine began trauma in my mother's womb. So I was born premature, about a month,
Mm-hmm.
and out of traumatic events. So I always say when we learn about superheroes, right, like the ones in Marvel Comics,
Mm-hmm.
Iron Man would piss his iron pants if he spent one day in our childhood as star beings.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we enter the world in shock, for example, many of my friends were born anything from a collapsed lung to umbilical cord around them to being born backwards. All these things start preparing us right? And I knew this preparation occurred with me from day one because I have memory of my birth and I visited my birth in several ways. When I was 8 in Alaska, I had been separated from my mother for almost 6 months. And that's a long time for a little kid.
Right.
And walking home on the way at night, because it got dark early in the winter, I got lost in the forest near the military base. It's called Fort Richardson Air Force Base for those who want to go look. And that's where I had one of my first, I don't know if I want to call it a near-death experience, an out-of-body experience, but that's my first real encounter with phenomena. Because I was out on the field, below zero weather, and I remember that I was crying, and I said I wanted to just go. I asked the sky, because I laid down, that I wanted to leave. And my body was lifted. As a little boy, this is very traumatic, but yet exciting, where I could see the earth getting smaller. And this voice spoke to me. This group of souls said, "We are you. And we want to show you who and what you are, because we are an extension of you." So I was taken toward the sun, and we went into the sun. I remember it wasn't hot. It was a living consciousness. You could feel it. I didn't even know the word consciousness at the time. And through the sun, it is an interchange of comets and planets and biospheres and ships and souls can go through the sun like a comet. So I got to see this like a IMAX experience, going through portals under the ocean of plasma that is the sun. Under it, there's land. There's even light under the light, which is kind of interesting. So from the sun, we went toward the middle of the galaxy, the Milky Way, and I was shown where stars are born and really where the concentration of light is in this Milky Way galaxy. I was even shown, like, while I was looking at the landscape of stars and the things that are in the center of the galaxy, we think there's a black hole, but what I experienced is more of a yin-yang, of forces pulsing energy from other dimensions coming into the third dimension. And it seems like the more advanced knowledge is toward the center of the galaxy, which is also the frequency of water. I was later to learn why there's water at the center of the Milky Way. From that experience, we went through the center of the Milky Way to another part of the universe. And we stopped in front of this giant galaxy that had color and sound. And this consciousness said to me, "This is you. Every human on earth is one of these. This is as close as we can come in the third dimension to show you your soul as a little tiny galaxy." And I was revealed that that galaxy collapses into a point of light. And like a movie, I saw that went into the womb of my mom about the third day of conception. And I saw that spark that initiated this burst of cells growing until I was a fetus. And I was watching the assembly of my body, like overseeing it. And then my birth, I was shown how I was born. And when that happened, I woke up in front of my house from being lost in the forest below zero weather, freezing to death. That's where my childhood began.
Wow.
How's that?
Oh my goodness, that is incredible. Incredible is not the word. And you were 8 years old, you mentioned.
Yes.
Wow.
Since then, I've had that live connection to a source of my soul, an aspect of it that continually feeds me. So it's not like channeling,
Right.
where I don't have to go into a trance. It is a continuous 24-hour presence that I have always been with. I've always had several soundtracks running in my brain at once.
Right.
And I suffer from a couple of things that I've mentioned before. One I call spiritual schizophrenia, which means that I have all these different personalities of wisdom and sources of light that I can pull from that are not necessarily the same source, like all these different dimensions inside of me. The second thing, I call it social dyslexia. That means what I see in reality, the way the world is presented to me, like there's a mirror in my head that just inverts everything, right? And it looks opposite. So everything that I see, the school system, my teachers, the subjects we were teaching, it was like, this is insanity.
Yes.
Well, my friends were growing up talking about hockey in Alaska. I was thinking about UFOs and thinking about connecting to my family, my real family. So I know this sounds familiar to a lot of our experiences, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And the thing that you mentioned, connecting to the source, that is very profound because it is. So I just wanted to explain more about it to our, to who's watching us, because yes,
Bring it on.
we have this channeling coming in, we have people sending us messages, but when you are connected directly to the source, it's a knowing you have within. Is right, it's that knowing that this is the truth, that this is your, this is the truth, like everything that you talked about, you just know it, you just don't need any other proof or any other explanation beyond what you know. Is that right?
Yes. And some of it is very abstract. For example, we acknowledge that people have kinetic intelligence, dancing ability. We acknowledge that people have musical intelligence or the kind of artistic. And I was born with all of those and more that I acknowledge. I assumed everybody was like this. I just thought this was normal. So one of them is energetic intelligence. That means that we can have a direct, intimate relationship with the energy of magnetism and light and sound. To me, those are living consciousness that I talk to all the time. Tesla talked about in his notes that he could acknowledge lightning as family. He remembered specific frequencies, so when it started raining, he could hear lightning miles and miles away and remember, oh, that was the same lightning that I heard in another part of the world. So the school system hadn't even thought about coming up with ideas for children that are gifted with an intimate relationship with nature. Light talks to me, magnetism and electricity. And you know what they're saying? They want to help us. Electricity does not want to be weaponized, stuck in our, walls and these dangerous cables. Electricity is love. I need to repeat that again.
Yes.
Magnetism, light, and electricity are a form of love, and they have physics to them of consciousness. So to me, when I study healing of the body, when I was growing up reading and learning about the true history of humanity based on war, none of it was really making sense to me. So I created several worlds where I lived the reality with my family in Alaska, growing up in a world without artists. I wasn't surrounded by healers and mystical people and esoteric people. So you know about that distancing, right, from childhood. That was the first step in my true awakening, the isolation. I thought I was the only one of my kind on the entire planet.
Absolutely. So were your parents supporting, like, did you share this information with anyone while growing up? Did you talk to anybody?
My parents were from a generation in Mexico where they were the first generation in the 60s and 70s to start really breaking away and living in America, right? So we were renegades in our own family already. Some of my uncles and aunties would say that we were crazy to come live in America, and yet it was exciting.
Yeah.
The other part of this is you become your own teacher early on when you awaken early. Meaning what the teachers would say, I would just think about it. Columbus never set foot in America. There was no Thanksgiving. There were no Indian, natives getting together with the pilgrims. And pretty much I learned that everything we were learning in school was really based on 5 or 6% truth, and the rest was lies. So I had to learn how to navigate disinformation early on. And I got to be an expert at it. I could tell from textbooks. I could put my hand on a textbook, and my system would tell me roughly how much truth was in there and the gist of it. So I could read books by putting my hand on them and absorbing the energetic imprint of the authors. And if it wasn't from integrity, I didn't even care to read it. I thought lucid dreaming was normal. I thought all kids lucid dreamed because I had friends in my dream life and I had places I could visit, including other planets. When I talked to my teachers about it, or I talked to my mom or dad about it, it was such a distance from their reality. It was tough to assimilate. At the same time, I didn't realize I was going to an experimental school in Alaska that was tied to secret government projects. So I started being recruited roughly around 5th grade in elementary school to 6th grade is when I was first approached after doing a series of intelligence tests.
Okay.
Where they would separate it.
Can you please explain more about the secret space program and what that recruiting is all about?
You like my answers with 10 sentences? It's just that this is such a thread of continuous experience. There are a variety of programs within DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Programs, the military industrial complex, and all the corporations that involve themselves with weapons building. That's one layer of the secret space program. That means there's a source of wealth that right now is in the quadrillions of dollars. People have a hard time understanding that number, 12 zeros.
Wow.
Where there's an entire group of humans, and there are several factions of them. We call them breakaway societies, like the Rothschilds, that have funded their own space stations, their own spaceships, and their own military without necessarily the government we acknowledge. So there are governments behind the government. There are programs behind NASA that are militarized, and there are individuals that can afford to buy their own space programs. The secret space program has been around at least since the 40s, World War II that we know about, where the Nazi intelligence, Project Paperclip, where scientists were brought from Nazi Germany to America to start NASA, our space program, Werner von Braun. Look up Dr. Carol Rosin and the weaponization of space. These are people that I've met in person. Is that a little intro?
Yes.
So for me, this is normal language. This should be part of the dialogue. Yes, we have a secret space program. Yes, we have secret governments. And yes, there's technology already in existence for time travel and teleportation, matter replication, remote viewing. Those are real.
That's so incredible. I just want to repeat that line again.
That's a mouthful.
I know we have technologies, guys, who's listening to this. This is incredible. Technologies of time travel, teleportation, material replication, that everything Fernando talked about. There's so much evidence and science behind it. So again, this is all about
imagine the distance between acknowledging, I saw UFOs growing up, I saw spaceships go into mountains, and eventually I was inside one of those later on in a different experience. So I was able to make contact with Pleiadian energy, Sirian and Arcturian and Agarthan, inner Earth, all of those different levels early in my life. I didn't know what they meant necessarily. To me, they were just like friends.
Right.
Not necessarily make-believe friends. They were an extension of my reality. Once again, this was normal for me.
Yes, right. So once you were approached to get recruited in one of this secret space program, what happened? How did it go?
It seemed like the teachers themselves were not necessarily in knowing what was going on. It was higher than the principal's knowledge, which means that people would come to my elementary school, and I went to 7 elementary schools growing up, and phenomena followed me between schools. I would be asked to take different kinds of tests. They were a little bit like IQ tests, and some of them were psychic tests with the training cards to see if you could remote view, look inside an envelope and see what was in there. Some of them were pattern matching tests. How fast could you pattern match? And it was kind of strange for me that the tests from pattern matching, meaning they show you a series of pictures and you got to figure out what the next picture is. But then they started having weirdness in them where I would see an image of an alien in a test, like a cartoon, just to see if you've ever seen anything like this, you know? So I had an idea what they were doing. They were trying to peer into my secret world. They wanted to know how to control me. Because when you are lucid dreaming as a little child, you know, it's 7, 8 years old, 9, practicing breaking the laws of physics. I would dream I could go through walls, be invisible. Obviously, I can fly. But I learned how to jump bodies in my dreams. I could go and be anybody else in my dream. I could go inside and look at life through theirs. So I didn't realize that this was training. They call it night school. And one can look up night school with contactees and experiencers. So this is where I began becoming a different kind of human.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how long did that go?
I didn't encounter openly other beings like me all the way up till roughly my 30s. So it was a very lonely growing up.
Right.
Where it progressed is through elementary school into junior high. At the same time, my family was having issues. There was a lot of dysfunctionality in our situation. The alcoholism, language issues, cultural issues. You know, while people were discriminating me for being Mexican, for being not white, I also was being discriminated for having a level of intelligence. Where I read all the books through weekends, I'd show up on Monday and ask the teacher, now what? You know, I've already read the entire textbook. I energetically read it, but I also flipped through it. On top of that, the Encyclopedia Britannica and anything my brain could get a hold of. And you're not allowed to go too fast, too soon in school. So I got identified and isolated as the weirdo. Oh no, here comes Fernando, you know, and ask him about this and ask him about that. Do you know that I did no homework throughout my entire career as a student? I never liked homework. So I figured out clever ways of getting credit and using my intelligence and my creativity so that I would make friends with teachers, right? And then I would start talking to them about physics, metaphysics, cosmology, phenomenology, epistemology, subjects that they weren't even thinking about. Right. So that's even through college, I didn't do a lot of homework.
So
it was all special projects.
Yeah. So your friends must hate you because they do the homework and you don't. Is that right?
And I want to be clear, this is not the kind of right-brained intelligence where you're really good at math. I suck at math. Okay. But cosmology, astrophysics, ask me about concepts that have a hard time, people have a difficult time understanding. Those are the ones I find easy, you know? Here's how gravity works, and I would sketch it out. And here's how we could travel through planets. And can you imagine a kid talking like that?
Yeah.
So I had all these personalities that had to split off, you know? Somehow I still had to deal with family and issues of growing up, you know, being a teenager, an awkward teenager in a way. But what saved me was I was Latino, which made me something interesting at school. I was an athlete and I was somebody who was a social butterfly. This is where I learned how to have a liquid personality that could flow between groups, but not be a member of any of them. The same for school. I developed a liquid mind that could go from different subjects and not get caught up with just being good at one thing. a Renaissance human being, a multipath. Does that sound familiar?
Wow, that sounds incredible, incredible. So I'm just imagining you, this teenage boy who is a super intelligent, connected to source, talking about planets, talking about cosmos, talking about sacred geometry. Tell me more about sacred geometry. How did you get into that? What was the first encounter with that?
The first was when Pythagoras was mentioned in school. And
Mhm,
this was early on when we started geometry, roughly around sixth grade elementary school.
mhm,
And first, I liked the word Pythagoras. It sounded very different than the names of other scientists or whatever. And it turns out that there's an energetic kind of historical connection for me, almost like ancestral, to the mystery schools from ancient Greece further back, even in India and in China and so forth. So sacred geometry came to me by way of loving things that were so-called, and I'll use stupid quotes, esoteric. There was a little store in the town that I lived in Anchorage that sold pyramids and had things from Egypt and, some of the new agey stuff.
mhm.
I was fascinated by the shapes of a pyramid. 51 degree, 0.1397197, blah, blah, blah. It's an infinite, that angle is an irrational number because you have to convert it to base 12 and base 13 mathematics to understand that the pyramids are actually whole numbers. When you multiply in other base mathematics, which I learned later, I learned that geometry, the shapes, it doesn't matter what the thing is made out of. It is establishing a communication that if I build a pyramid to perfect proportions, the earth acknowledges it. Nature acknowledges as a form of life and starts feeding it life force. So for me, geometry was the language of energy, not math. I didn't say math or physics.
Mhm.
I realized that you could learn everything about trigonometry and calculus just by picking up some triangles and moving them around and putting them on top of each other. And then the relationships, how does this triangle compare to this triangle? Is it bigger, smaller? Is if you put them together and build a three-dimensional shape, I realized that you could actually describe anything, even back in high school, in shapes. And I didn't understand, why don't we teach math using sacred geometry from the very beginning? The first thing I would do is ask children to draw the flower of life by hand. And things start happening. Neural networks start bursting forward in your brain and forming new constructs.
Mhm.
Suddenly, I could understand concepts that the teachers couldn't deal with. Quantum physics, before there was a real talk of quantum physics, right?
Wow.
The other thing that sacred geometry revealed to me was the unseen world.
Mhm.
What does it look like? What is that thing around my body, like a field of intelligence that now I know is called a Merkaba,
Mhm.
a chariot, a container for your soul? What does it look like? What does love look like? What does compassion look like? What is the shape of the language that nature uses to inspire a tree, to have genetics express all life? There's a poem by Rumi that has an opening stanza that says, "What was said to the rose is being said to me right here in my chest." Sacred geometry is talking to me right here. It is love. It's telling me, Fernando, you're not crazy.
Right.
If you work in sacred geometry, you will always be home. The star language is the light languages that I've learned to express are all shapes. It's all frequencies. It's the visual part of what science doesn't want to deal with.
Right.
So I'm going at it from different angles.
Yes, that's amazing. So I want to ask you this question: how we're going to get into the Vossahedron, which I'm super excited to learn all about it. But I wanted to know about the manifestation process, your process of manifesting things. Uh, I'm just curious. Like, you have access to all these resources, all this information. How do you, Fernando, if you want to manifest something, how would you do that?
I already know that everything is already manifested.
Mm-hmm.
If I get an idea in my brain, I already acknowledge that it is a transmission, a telepathic platform. Like I'm looking through a keyhole and to another room, that room is already real. There are people already living in the eco future that I've been fantasizing about my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
So the way to manifest for me is to not manifest, more like materialize,
Mm-hmm.
to transmute your thought and physically be able to experience it is to vossalize something. My name, Vossa,
Mm-hmm.
is actually a substance in the universe, at least in this galaxy. Vossalium is the substance,
Mm-hmm.
and it has a physics to it. My name is an actual presence, it's a consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And the act of acknowledging a thought as something that's already materialized in another dimension, all I do is look at it with my third eye. For example, the idea of an eco city that heals our bodies. I'm just working backwards from the vision of it and sculpting it in matter. Just like, Michelangelo said, take away the stuff that doesn't belong there of the marble. I'm just taking away the stuff that doesn't belong in the creation of healing houses or the manifestation of a human that could actually lucid dream while awake. So the second part that I use is knowing 100% that every thought I have is real, absolutely real. So real that I have so much certainty that I can manifest and materialize, come up with a creative way to describe anything. So when I am going to do an interview, I am going to do a presentation, I can get in front of a microphone and give a flawless presentation without any ums or ah. You notice I don't get stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts aren't necessarily being figured out. I am reading directly from my Akashic inheritance when I'm speaking. I'm not always speaking from this voice. I'm not always coming from that. Sometimes I come from the hurt ego, right? So the third way I manifest is to readjust where I'm speaking from. Not from the victim, Fernando, not from the scared guy who was wondering how am I going to pay bills. I just right away start speaking from the voice that makes things happen. Right? There was a time, I'm going to credit Sevan Bomar for this thought, that we were given names of power in a language of power. Sanskrit was one of the languages of energy, that your name, Aktun Ra, meant things will happen when you say those words. So I speak from a place of certainty when I speak about the Vossahedron. And things happen when I open my mouth and say that word, Vossahedron. It's a new hydra. It's a new geometry, a new way of geo-engineering the earth.
Wow.
Vosa is a word that makes things happen when you say that word.
Right. I totally resonate with the idea that sound has and the names have this vibration that we hold. I want to know more about the frequencies of sound and how that affects our lives in our everyday lives, how it raises our vibration. Can you tell more about that, about the sound in our life? And what kind of sounds do
The
we need to
first shift in understanding is that just because a form of energy comes in through a different part of your body like touch or sound or light or heat. They are all the same thing. We are feeding from the law of one. There's only one presence here.
Mhm.
To me, the word frequency is not a sound. My galactic name, the sole expression of my frequency, my unique signature in the universe, is not a sound that can actually be heard here on Earth. It is a realm, it is a dimension, it is an actual space. So to me, sounds are realms, they are kingdoms
Mhm.
stuck in between layers of reality. So I can go into an idea, for example,
Right.
when I ask the simple question, can I design a house to heal my body and rejuvenate? Where does that question go? And where does that answer come from? The answer is absolutely yes. I get the yes for my questions even before I ask them. When I think of frequency, when I think of sound, I actually am stepping into a virtual world of pure coherence, pure resonance. So to me, frequency is the front door. Like if you're looking at a structure of energy, the opening is the frequency of it, which is its name. And you open the door and you go inside you can say the sound of it. To me, it's the emotion of it. When I recall my dreams, when I recall an idea, I'm not thinking about the description of it. I am connecting with how did it feel to dream that? How did it feel to think about a car that runs on free energy? How that frequency is me stepping into that environment where I could describe it.
Right.
Free energy to me is a frequency, and I can step into the world of free energy and describe what it's like. That's not a sound, it's actually a space.
Yes. Yes.
To me, frequencies are portals.
Yes. So since you mentioned free energy, I want to ask a question. Describe what is free energy? What is it all about?
Obviously, the word free energy has been co opted and has been debunked and it's been attacked. So that is not my favorite term,
Mhm.
but it is the understanding that all the energy we ever will need is already out there in here. There is no out there. So if we are looking to clean up the planet, if we are intending to heal humanity, grow food everywhere, to have clean water available freely, we are to retune the way we understand energy is not something that we got to pay for every month to the electric company. It is not something that is manufactured in some building like an electric facility. You are that energy. You are the abundance of perpetual motion. So when we talk about free energy devices, some kind of generator that will make electricity for free, meaning you don't have to put gasoline in it.
Right.
You don't have to connect anything to a wall. We come into a place where we don't have to burn anything to get energy. We don't have to combust, implode, destroy anything. That is a masculine kind of way of seeing brute force nature. Free energy is having a dialogue, a conversation with the earth, and invite the earth to be part of your life so that you have light, so that you have heat, so that we can plan to be humans, meaning colorful beings on this earth. So when we go from controlled energy, that's the black and white digital AI world, the artificial intelligent world that we've been sold.
Mhm.
Free energy is the world of color, analog information, infinite bandwidth. So when I look at a prism, and I have lots of toys like that, and I look at the sun and I make a rainbow,
Mhm.
that's very different than something digital like your cell phone. When you use analog technology, you are in the free energy world. When you're using digital technology, you're in the limited, polarized, separated, controlled world.
Mm.
Is that a start? Is that a, because I don't want to give the traditional answers. I want to show you that
Yes.
this is a lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
This is part of my body. Free energy is not a generator to me that I got to work on in magnets and I got to put outside my house
Right.
so that it powers my toaster and my microwave. To me, that's not free energy. Free energy is when you are rejuvenating your body
Mm-hmm.
and you are the energy dynamo of your life, that you can power anything. Be where you need to be, when you want to be, and have the things in your life that you want to employ to be a human. Those are all free energy ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, if a child in school is thinking, well, when I grow up, I want to clean up the planet. And the teacher would say, it's going to take a lot of electricity and it's going to be expensive to clean up the planet like the oceans.
Mm-hmm.
That's not free energy thinking. Free energy thinking is that we can work with the sun, work with the energy of the oceans, work with the energy of the earth to clean up our mess, right?
Yes.
Come from an infinite source from the beginning.
Yes. Yes. I love this answer. I think this is one of the most beautiful answers I've heard about
Thank-
free energy.
And I'll give you one quick example of how those dots are tied together.
Okay.
In the Vossahedron structure, which we're going to talk about a little bit,
Yes.
it is a dome home.
Okay.
And one of the many aspects that I researched is how can I produce water with a architecture that is not necessarily harvested from pipes that came from a water source like a river. What if there is water everywhere all the time? Not only liquid, gaseous, and solid water and ice, but there's also water in plasma form in the atmosphere. There's water in energetic form, and there's water as pure consciousness flying around, always there. You can go to the Sahara, you
Mm-hmm.
can go to Death Valley, and there is water in the air, but we only measure it up to a certain point, meaning they say there's zero precipitation, zero humidity. Well, you know what people like Vosa say, people like Tesla? How about a lightning bolt in the air that suddenly releases a cloud of water because we know the frequency? That's free energy. It didn't come from anywhere. It didn't have to come from the ocean and be able to be steam and eventually make water. Water is everywhere all the time on Earth, and you can probe it and make it rain anywhere on Earth with electricity. That's an easy answer for free energy.
Wow. Wow. That's
Why don't we just make houses that you can make it rain on your house anytime you need water by sending a little electric signal through a crystal and say, Earth, I love you. I'm a flower. Can you water me?
That's incredible, incredible. Tell me about. Let's talk about Vossahedron. I'm really excited to learn all about it and what it can do. And yeah, and I have more questions.
In December 21st, 2012, the big fat date where we all consumed the CDs and the DVDs and all the talks and workshops on 2012, the big shift, blah, blah, blah. December 22nd happened the next morning. And I was one of those true believers, really sold on the idea of 2012. I actually believed that the next day we'd wake up and things would happen. That means there would be announcements around the world that we've liberated the planet, we've declared peace, and all resources around the planet are being focused on planetary liberation, reparations for war. All of that, I thought, like I was the sucker. I really was. I did the ceremony December 21st. I connected with my friends that were in Machu Picchu and Chichen Itza and that beautiful city dedicated to Krishna in India, Ankara, different places.
Mm-hmm.
But the next day, I still had to pay my light bill. I still had to go find a job, blah, blah, blah. So to me, the Vossahedron was a response, an emergency response that I said, if I'm going to be alive on this planet, I cannot live in a city. I cannot live in the matrix. No longer do I want to be part of it. So that's when I got busy. I went into deep meditation. I was very depressed in 2012 and 2013. I was so disappointed. It was a personal offense to me that it didn't happen. So I asked, what would happen if I focused my creativity and materialized an object that was multidimensional, something you've never seen before, a house, an architecture that would shield you from the matrix? I no longer wanted to participate. I've already participated. I was in Black projects. I was in corporations. I was in the educational system. My heart right now is happy to let go of that world. So I needed a house to shield me from that world. I didn't want HARP, MK Ultra mind control. I didn't want 5G, 4G, 3G, or anything else, chemtrails coming into my house.
Yes.
So I asked some simple questions. What would it be like to create a portal where I could live and I engage my DNA to start rejuvenating my body, to restructure my mind, because my mind was my enemy, the enemy that took me to believe that we could actually have a 2012 experience, the enemy that really makes me suffer the way I see the world. I wanted to heal that, right? And I said, well, what is the shape of a house that heals your body? What does it look like when you generate your own electricity from the earth? What does it look like to build a machine to amplify consciousness so that I can practice mental telepathy, astral travel, remote viewing, and anything else this little body can do? I want to know. As an architect, I said, I need to build a platform for that. That's where the Vossahedron was born. It couldn't be a platonic solid. It wasn't going to be a pyramid or a sphere or a cube. It was going to be a brand new geometry. Because I'll tell you, no matter how cool the pyramids are, how amazing they've been around for 10,000 years or more, they have not been able to break the matrix. So that I'm saying, and of course, I want to speak to your father about this, that the pyramid is no longer the geometry of choice for humanity. It was an instrument back then. But right now we need new geometries because we have different bodies that have been contaminated. We have different minds. We have different perception of reality. So the model of a pharaoh building a pyramid, the model of a being coming from Andromeda, from the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita and the Mahabharata, all those were appropriate back then. Who are our gods today? And I'm not talking about gods to worship, super beings to liberate this planet. The Vossahedron came out of thinking, where would we live as ascended beings? You like that?
Yes, yes, I love that. And I have so many questions coming out. So,
and I do want to mention one more time that I am going to be speaking at the Cosmic Reset. We're going to do live experiencing of what I'm talking about. You're going to actually be able to invoke geometry for you in this workshop. And your father's going to be there too, which I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, those of you guys, I just wanted to talk about my father here since Fernando mentioned. His name is Pari Patri. He's a meditation teacher, and he's the founder of Pyramid Spiritual Societies movement. And that's what Fernando was referring to, that the organization has built 20,000 pyramids across India and across the world, and solely for meditation. It is just used for meditation. and we have speakers coming in. And Fernando, of course, I'm excited to see him. I was hoping he would bring his icosahedron dome, but I guess it's too far for him to drive. So, but next time I would love to go and see
I
that.
do have a surprise for our viewing audience today.
Okay.
I have a Vossahedron that I printed in 3D.
Uh-huh.
I made it in 2 parts. This project has 6 years of research in several countries, over 12 project teams. So obviously we can't disclose everything in one talk.
Yes.
This is the general shape. Yeah, I'm using 2 colors because I ran out of the same color in the 3D printer. But it is a 12-sided star that has 6 major points and 6 minor points that fits perfectly like a mechanism inside the flower of life. These points correspond to the circles in the flower of life. So most people would recognize the major 6 points, but they're not used to seeing the smaller 6 points. The proportion of this large point to the small point is the square root of 3, which is the same calculation Tesla used to create a 3-phase circuit. You're looking at a shape that if I was to take a copper wire and put nails on a board and follow this shape and make a spiral, that 12-sided up and down is actually a sine wave. You're looking at a generator. So the shape came from the flower of life and also the saguaro and barrel cactus in the desert. And you'll notice that there's a 12-sided footprint,
Right.
but there's also another skylight on the top of the dome. This is made out of glass. So what this does is it creates these 90-degree angles. Let me turn it around this way. You see a 90-degree angle right there? Facing outwards, and 60-degree angles facing inwards. Like when you're standing inside your dome, you're only interacting with a machine that cymatically, what it means is that your emotion, your voice, your life force is reflected inside this dome, and it continually makes this beautiful pattern, like a Dr. Emoto signature. You're living inside a crystal, is really what we're talking about. This shape shields you because it's designed with stealth technology. This house is stealth to the matrix. It can't detect it. And it is also designed for hurricanes, category 5, 300 kilometer an hour, 200 mile an hour, 8.0 earthquake. And you can build it with a mold. So we're going to build a mold this year that only makes 1 wedge. And we're using this kind of orgonite biopolymer hempcrete. That sounds like a lot of stuff, right?
Yes.
We're inventing a concrete that is green. It's the same color as the cactus. The concrete is green through and through. And the geometry establishes a field that talks to your DNA. So you can start releasing stem cells as soon as you're standing in here. And you're drinking water that is structured, crystallized, solarized, living life force. That's the way we should live. At least start there, right?
Of course. Why not?
And it's designed to make electricity so you can put a LED light bulb next to the wall and it'll light. But you can touch it, tongue test it, it won't do anything because it's part of your body and the earth. The way Tesla meant electricity to be, a healing energy. So this shape is modular. So you can build various domes in your house, your school, your healing centers, so that you are inside the library of geometry. All you have to do is look around inside this dome, and the Vossahedron starts teaching you the proportions of universal law. It is an actual encyclopedia of geometry, the house is. It teaches you everything you need to know to grow healthy food, to harvest water, to start talking to the earth. And it is like living inside an instrument, like a telescope, to the inner verse. How about if your house was a particle accelerator of consciousness? Wouldn't that be fun?
Yes.
And what if we start teaching kids? First, what would happen if we had a generation of children that graduated from school knowing how to build their own homes by hand, how to harvest their own electricity and water, how to grow their own food, children that know how to heal their own body? What would happen if children already knew they had superpowers and they started using them and their building amplified them? Wouldn't that be an interesting generation of kids?
That would be amazing.
You know what's going to happen is they're going to start inventing things we never thought were possible, like visiting other planets remotely, like healing the world from anywhere in the world, like networking, because all of the awakening beings on this planet are connected telepathically and we're helping each other all the time.
Right.
I'm not the inventor of the Vossahedron. I'm just translating this geometry into material that you can touch. It's not me.
That's amazing. And I think we have so much to talk about Vossahedron now that I understood a little bit about it, is how it, and also the word that you mentioned, ascension. And I think we need a whole session just talking about that ascension and what it is all about. How do we get there, or who can get there?
I'll give you the short version of it.
Okay.
It's again, you begin the frequency with a question that invites the energy to populate your question. So my question is, this amazing ascension process that we learn about as part of the awakening of spirituality, the idea that our body, our mind, and our spirit together as one process can start elevating the frequency of our cells, elevating the frequency of our DNA to the point where we can start activating codons for longevity, start structuring our light body around us so that it begins to interact with the earth and the solar system and the galaxy, and matter pays attention to what you want to do. And what if this process involved traveling through time in micro increments so that you're aging differently than people standing in front of you, so that there's a level of love and compassion, that the physics of the earth are working with you. You know, we talk about the Master Jeshua, Jesus, walking on water. Well, what does it take to do that? First, it is a remembering. What was it like when Earth was planet human? When this Earth actually received our bodies so that we could interact with the ocean, the forests, the mountains, just like animals do, naturally. We are not part of any system right now. We lost that connection. We go to the forest or the oceans or the mountains and we have to destroy them to survive. Ascension is reconnecting with the knowledge of how to have nutrition come in through your pores, how to have the energizing coming in through your eyes of the sun, kind of like a breatharian or a sun gazer, so that you require less volume of food. And you start tuning into the idea that your body's made out of crystal, all of that. Anyway, that is what I want a house to do, to help me with that experiment. It is an experiment.
That is incredible, and we're just getting to the end of this hour, and I just wanted to open up chat. Hey guys, if you have any questions for Fernando, please feel free to just pop it in there. We have a few more minutes, so we'd love to have your questions, and Fernando will be happy to answer them for you right now. And we will be doing more sessions because we have so much to talk about. We have just started, got to the surface, and we talk about the unity consciousness, the healing. How does free energy and healing really relate to each other? How do we grow, the food that Fernando was talking about, the water, and especially, and also the Ascension. I think we're going to go deep into that. And how do we make it happen? How do we shift from this victim consciousness that we have into unity consciousness? These are all the questions we are going to talk about in the next few sessions. So if you have any question, anything that you want to ask Fernando right now, please feel free to pop it in there.
There is a chat button on the,
Yes,
just so people know that they can type a question.
yes, they can type a question and we can see your questions right now. Okay, we have a question from April. When is the prototype coming out?
We are scheduled to build the mold this year, this very summer. We've organized a team of assistants, and April, you're part of that team, who's one of our testers. So we've just made contact with a local university, Western New Mexico University, and eventually we'll make contact with other schools to be able to do our first build sometime in August, September of this year. The first 18-foot diameter Vossahedron, 9 feet high, so we can start studying the effects. Who's going to want to sleep in the first Vossahedron?
Me.
Who's going to make love in the first Vossahedron? Energy that amplifies 528, 936 hertz.
Wow.
How about a building made to make love?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is part of the ascension process, to reconnect with what is natural. So April, this year, this is it. I'm throwing everything at it. So part of this is to invite organizations like Wells Fargo Bank, which is a local bank here, to start funding the larger version. We are making contact with the United Nations and their sustainability program. This is part of the healing of the world for me, to invite organizations and companies and clean up their money, their intentions, and their consciousness. And this is how it's going to be done. People ask me, how are you going to fund this? I'm inviting industry to be part of this. Right now, let me just pour a cold bucket of water here so people get it. You're looking at Steve Jobs holding the Apple computer right now. Does the audience understand the profundity of that? You are looking at Tesla standing next to his Wardenclyffe Tower. You are looking at Buckminster Fuller the first time he showed his geodesic geometry. This is real, everyone. You are looking at the seed to the next .com internet explosion on the planet. The eco real estate, conscious economy. This is a seed of that. It's profound.
Yes, it is. Lisa says, I'm excited. And Lisa says, love your house idea. Would love to see these in Florida.
Yes. And I'd love to go speak in Florida.
Yes.
My friend is over there.
And yeah, so guys, Fernando is coming to Virginia, Madison in August. And he will be there the whole weekend. So you can come hang out with him, ask all your questions about the dome house and just his story. Oh my gosh, it's so interesting. And it's on August 2nd to 4th in Madison, Virginia. CosmicReset.com. Go ahead. The early bird is on. It's until June 30th. So go ahead and put your deposit and you don't even have to pay the whole thing. Just get your spot there because it is, it is going to be super amazing weekend, filled with sacred geometry, filled with high vibration, and Fernando is going to speak there. So we have a lot.
The cosmic reset for me is the refocusing of everything that I am. Meaning, this little physical body living on Earth at this time is the crux, the apex of my soul at this moment. I invited everything and anybody or anything that's paying attention to what I'm doing, whether they're galactic star beings, whether they are inner earth, whether it's DNA or nature itself, whatever it is, this is a project of cosmic art. That's why I say I'm an artivist. I'm an activist who's an artist. And the projects that I'm doing are examples of what is possible. So other humans would say, wow, if this crazy man has an idea to build a house to heal his body and to amplify his consciousness, if he can do that, then I can do my project. It's permission slips. Because I also say if people like Elon Musk got the funding and the energy of the universe to materialize Tesla Motors and SpaceX, if that got happening as a reality, I get to do my project, is what I'm saying. If people get to build their black projects and the secret space program, and there are trillions of dollars for that nonsense, we get to do the liberation of this planet. And when I stand at the United Nations speaking to the leaders of this planet, I will speak this plainly, fearlessly. Believe it, because this is the voice of the earth asking for us to wake the funk up. This is the voice of the indigenous saying, let us heal what has happened in genocide. And this is the voice of electricity and magnetism and light working through a human body saying, we are ready to help you do this. This is the cosmic reset.
That was powerful and wonderful. Thank you so much, Fernando. It's been a pleasure talking to you this last 1 hour. I've learned so much new stuff, and I'm sure everybody who's watching this is in awe of this new technology that is coming up and can't wait to see that and actually live inside that. We will do this again. We are going to come back on next Monday, 1 p.m. same time, and talk more about the details about this, the Vossahedron. What is it all about? How does it actually work? So if you have any questions, please come back, and we're going to answer them here on live for you guys. And until then, have a great weekend, guys. It's wonderful, wonderful to have you here. Truly pleasure. Thank you so much for watching this.
Pari,
Yes.
namaste. I will leave with a very short mantra. I am the center of mass creation. I am an engine of mass creation. I am the center of mass creation. I'm an engine of mass creation. Repeat that to yourself as many times as you need to. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.